You ever have one of those days where everything feels perfect, like life is handing you a glass of champagne and saying, "Here, take a sip. You've earned it"? That was the day we baptized our daughter, Emma. The church bells rang like they'd been tuned just for us. The sky was spotless, not a cloud in sight. My wife, Clarissa, wore a pale blue dress that somehow made her eyes look like they'd swallowed the whole summer sky. And me? I had the dumbest grin on my face, standing next to her, holding our daughter in her little white gown with lace so delicate, it looked like it was spun out of angel breath. That morning, I was a proud man. Husband. Father. Believer. We chose Leo as Emma's godfather. My best friend since high school. The guy who taught me how to throw a spiral and who covered for me when I totaled Dad's truck sophomore year. And Hannah, Clarissa's childhood best friend, was the godmother. She and Leo had this harmless sibling banter thing going on that always made everyone laugh. The four of us were tight. Real tight. Like one of those golden sitcom friend groups with inside jokes and matching cabin trips. The priest asked Leo and Hannah if they were ready to guide Emma in faith and life. "I do," Leo said, placing his hand gently on Emma's forehead like she was made of starlight. And for a second, I believed in everything. In loyalty. In love. In the kind of friendship that gets passed down through generations. What I didn't know, what nobody knew, was that under all that warm light and holy water, a different kind of fire was already catching. Quiet. Hidden. Patient. And it was going to burn everything I thought was real to ash. After the baptism, we threw a little backyard celebration. Nothing too flashy, just close family, a barbecue, and enough lemonade to hydrate a baseball team. Clarissa looked radiant. People kept saying that. Motherhood suits her, they'd whisper. She glows. And yeah, she did glow. But looking back, it wasn't the kind of glow I thought it was. It wasn't joy, it was adrenaline. Excitement. The kind people get when they're balancing on the edge of something reckless. Leo was everywhere that day. Grilling burgers. Making old people laugh. Holding Emma like she was his own blood. I remember watching him twirl her around and thinking, that's my brother right there. I even pulled him aside, handed him a beer, and said, "Thanks, man. For being solid. For being here." He clinked my bottle and grinned. "Always, brother. We're family. Family." That word rang deep for me. For us. And when he said it, I believed it the same way I believed in gravity. The kind of belief that doesn't even need proof until you're falling. Hannah was there too, watching everything with this calm clarity I didn't appreciate at the time. She held Emma like a secret. She watched Clarissa like a hawk in a silk dress. And when Leo went to help my wife cut the cake, she looked down at Emma and whispered something I couldn't hear. But the way her face shifted after, it was like she already knew what was coming. I remember snapping a photo of the four of us. Me, Clarissa, Leo, and Hannah, arms locked like we were carved from one tree. Emma in the center, bright-eyed and clueless. It's still on my fridge, that photo. I look at it every day now, not because it makes me smile, but because it reminds me of the day I missed everything. The signs were there. A look. A pause too long. A laugh that wasn't meant for me. But I didn't see it. Because love makes you blind. And trust? Trust is the blindfold you tie yourself. It was a Tuesday. Not the kind of day you expect your world to fall apart. You expect that on a Friday, maybe, a dramatic end-of-week collapse, or on a Sunday, something biblical. But this was a Tuesday. Boring. Predictable. Until it wasn't. Clarissa had left her laptop open in the kitchen, and I wasn't snooping. Not at first. I just wanted to print out Emma's pediatric appointment details. But when I moved the mouse, her screen lit up like Judgment Day. An email thread was open. Subject line. Missing you already. The sender? Leo. At first, I thought, nah, this must be old. Something before we were together. But the timestamp? 3 days ago. 3 days. 2 days after Clarissa told me she was going out with Hannah for a wine and cry night. Funny, I didn't remember any crying when she came home. I clicked. Your neck still smells like that candle you used to keep in the guest bathroom, Leo wrote. Every time I walk past a eucalyptus tree now, I lose my mind. My stomach dropped so fast it should have broken through the floorboards. Clarissa's reply? I can still taste your cologne. Stop texting me while he's in the house. You're going to get us caught. Get us caught. That phrase did something violent to me. It flipped a switch. Because it wasn't just the betrayal, it was the planning. The teamwork. My wife and my best friend were co-conspirators in a soap opera I never auditioned for. I stood there, in our kitchen, the same kitchen where we baked Emma's first birthday cake, staring at the words that made everything feel like a rerun of a show where I was just the background extra. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I did what men like me do. I copied the emails, I printed them out, and I sat in silence with the ghost of the life I thought I had. And then, out of nowhere, Hannah showed up. She dropped by with a toy Emma had left in her car after church. Her eyes met mine, and something must have shown on my face because she tilted her head and said, "What happened?" I didn't speak. I just slid the email across the table. She read it. Slowly. Carefully. Then she looked up and whispered, "So it's true." "Wait, you knew?" I asked. "No," she said, her voice cracking. "But I suspected. I just didn't want to believe it." And right there, in the center of my broken home, I did something that caught even me off guard. I hugged her. Not out of romance. Not out of hope. But out of shared ruin. "We are family too," I said quietly. "Only a real one." The day after I found out, everything looked the same, but nothing felt right. Clarissa stood in the kitchen, humming, barefoot, flipping pancakes like a woman who didn't have a knife hidden in her apron. Emma babbled in her high chair, smearing banana across her cheek. And me? I sat across the table, drinking coffee like it wasn't laced with betrayal. It was theater now. Our lives. And I was suddenly the only one in the audience who realized the actors were lying. Clarissa looked up at me and smiled. "You're quiet today." "Didn't sleep well," I said, because it was technically true. Didn't mention that I hadn't blinked in hours because every time I closed my eyes, I saw Leo's name flashing like a neon sign in my brain. I'd gone from husband to detective in one night, screenshotting messages, checking timestamps, building a timeline in my head like it was a murder mystery. Because, in a way, something had died. I spent the next few days pretending. I kissed her on the cheek. I rocked Emma to sleep. I even joked with Leo in the group chat. "You know the kind of man you have to be to type, LOL, at the guy who just stabbed you in the back with your whole future? That takes effort. That takes control." I had both now because I wasn't reacting anymore. I was planning. Hannah became my only confidant. We'd text late at night after Clarissa had passed out next to me, phone clutched like a guilty secret in her palm. Hannah kept her tone cool, but I knew it cut her too. She defended Clarissa for years. Even after she had a weird feeling about the way Leo looked at her. Even when Clarissa started canceling girl nights. Even when she'd catch Clarissa's phone lighting up with work texts during dinner. They'd fooled everyone, including themselves. But that's the thing about affairs. They're built like houses with no foundation. Eventually, the lies get too heavy, and the whole thing comes crashing down. One night, about a week after the discovery, I found myself staring at our wedding album. Clarissa had made it herself, leather-bound, cream-colored, pressed flowers inside. She looked stunning in every photo. She still does. That's the curse. You don't stop loving them right away. You just start loving them differently, like a memory or a song you can't listen to anymore. My favorite picture used to be the one where Leo was tying my tie before the ceremony. He was smiling, and I was laughing at something he said. It looked like brotherhood. It looked like trust. I ripped it out and fed it to the fireplace. That was the first step. Step 2 was talking to a lawyer. Now, let me be clear. I wasn't filing anything. Yet. But I wanted to know my exits. My leverage. You don't go into battle without knowing the terrain. I sat across from a woman named Jenna, sharp as a razor and just as clean. I handed her a folder with all the evidence. She flipped through it without flinching. "When the time comes," she said, closing the folder, "you'll be holding the pen." That line stayed with me. Holding the pen. Because up until now, they'd been writing the story. Scribbling in the margins of my life like I wouldn't notice. But the ink was dry, and now? Now I was the author. The third step was watching. Observing. I started noticing patterns. Leo would text Clarissa right after she put Emma down for her nap. She'd get quiet, smile at her phone, then take a walk. Sometimes 20 minutes. Sometimes 2 hours. Always came back with the same excuse, needed air. Air smelled a lot like cologne lately. And then it happened. A Wednesday. Rainy. The kind of afternoon that makes you want soup in silence. Clarissa said she was going to see Hannah. Said they were having a catch-up coffee. I nodded. Kissed her forehead. Then I called Hannah. She answered in one ring. She just texted. Said she had a migraine. Thought so. I didn't follow her. Not yet. I didn't need to. I knew the play. I just needed the right curtain call. Instead, I drove to the church. The one where we baptized Emma. The same pew where Leo stood next to me, whispering that she looked just like me. Funny. Turns out she's the only one in the room who really does. I sat in that pew for a long time. Let the silence bleed the rage out of me. Because I wasn't going to explode. No. That would be too easy. Too obvious. And let's be honest, people like Leo and Clarissa expect that. They need you to be the crazy one. They need you to break so they don't have to. But I wouldn't break. I'd build. That night, she came home late. Hair damp, lips slightly smudged. The rain? Or someone's goodbye kiss? I helped her out of her coat. Did Hannah's coffee help the migraine? I asked, voice steady as stone. She blinked once. Yeah. She gave me some tea too. Good, I said. You'll need your strength. She tilted her head. For what? I smiled big, warm, and completely hollow. For what's coming. She laughed. Nervously. But I didn't laugh back. She stopped. In that moment, she knew something had shifted. Something had slipped out of her control. And I hadn't even raised my voice. I didn't have to. Because quiet revenge is the loudest. 3 days after the coffee that cured a migraine, Clarissa started acting different. Not nervous, yet, but more aware. Like someone who just realized the house might be bugged and isn't sure which lamp is listening. She got quiet at dinner. Didn't laugh at Emma's mashed potato mustache. Barely touched her wine. And when her phone buzzed, she jumped like it bit her. Normally, she'd just glance down, smirk, and swipe quick like a teenager texting under the table. But now she silenced it. Face down. Progress. Leo, for his part, started retreating. I noticed it in the group chat. Used to be that he'd drop in with a bad meme or a sarcastic comment every hour. Lately, it was dry. One-word replies. A thumbs up here. A forced haha there. He was getting spooked, too. Like the walls were closing in and someone had finally found the blueprints. And they had. Me. The interesting thing about betrayal is how stupid it makes the betrayers. They assume the person they're fooling is too simple to catch on. But once the blindfold comes off, all you have to do is keep watching. They expose themselves, bit by bit, like amateur magicians in a rigged talent show. Take Friday night, for example. Clarissa was putting Emma to bed. I heard her soft voice through the baby monitor, reading Goodnight Moon like nothing in the world was wrong. I was in the office, staring at the wall, debating my next move, when her phone buzzed again on the kitchen counter. I didn't grab it. I didn't have to. Because 5 seconds later, my own phone lit up. It was Hannah. One photo. No caption. Leo. His car. Parked outside an apartment building on 9th and Hazel. Not his apartment. Not his office. Just a new little hideout. Hannah had been watching him. She'd picked up the scent. And judging by the timestamp, she'd caught him leaving that place more than once, always 20 minutes before Clarissa's errands. I stared at the picture for a long time. Not because I needed confirmation, but because it felt like the final puzzle piece had clicked into place. And now, it was time to flip the board. The next morning, I made Clarissa breakfast. French toast, strawberries, whipped cream. The works. You're in a good mood, she said, cutting a corner off with her fork. Just appreciating what I have, I said, pouring her more coffee. Figured we could go see Leo and Hannah today. Her eyes twitched. Just for a second. Oh. Today? She asked, chewing slowly. I thought we were staying in. Hannah texted. I lied. Said she missed Emma. Clarissa nodded too fast. Right. Of course. Yeah, sure. Her smile looked painted on, and not by a professional. More like a kindergartner with a crayon and no supervision. We showed up at Hannah's place around noon. Emma in my arms, Clarissa carrying a casserole dish like she was heading to a church potluck and not a ticking time bomb. Leo's car was already in the driveway. Perfect. Hannah greeted us with that same calm I'd grown to admire, like a chess player who's always 3 moves ahead but still has time to make you tea. She scooped up Emma and whisked her away to the nursery, leaving me and Clarissa standing awkward in the living room. Then Leo came around the corner. And I wish I could describe the look on his face better than this, but honestly, it was the human version of someone realizing their seat at the poker table is missing a chair leg. Hey, man, he said, too loud, too cheerful. Didn't know you were coming by. Neither did Clarissa, I replied. Isn't that right, babe? She laughed nervously. It was last minute. Leo nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. Cool, cool. You want a drink, or? We're good, I said. Actually, I was hoping to have a word. Just the 3 of us. Clarissa looked at me, then at Leo, then at the casserole in her hands like it might explode. She placed it gently on the table. Is this about something? She asked. Oh, it's about everything, I said, and took a seat. They followed. Like lambs to the altar. I looked at Leo first. How long? He didn't pretend to misunderstand. Didn't fake confusion. He just deflated like a punctured tire. Logan. How long? I repeated. He swallowed. A few months. Clarissa shot him a look. Not shut up, not deny it. Just a pleading not like this. But it was already like this. Since the baptism? I asked. Silence. You told me we were a family that day, I said, turning to Clarissa. You stood in a church, made vows, and then started sneaking off with the man who held our daughter like a promise. I didn't mean. You meant every second of it, I said. You just didn't think I'd catch on. Leo looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. No, it wasn't, I said, leaning forward. Because if you were going to blow up my life, you could have at least done it with a little class. Not behind God's back. Not in the same pew where I handed you my daughter and called you family. Clarissa opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. I'm not here to argue, I said. I'm here to tell you what happens next. Leo blinked. What do you mean? I'm not yelling. I'm not throwing anything. But I want you both to understand something very clearly. I pulled a manila envelope from my jacket, slid it across the table. Leo picked it up, opened it. Photos, screenshots, logs. Every lie, I said. Every message. Every little stolen moment you thought was secret. It's not anymore. Clarissa's hand went to her mouth. Leo closed the folder like it burned. I'm going to take care of Emma, I continued. I'm going to rebuild what you try to shatter. But you, I looked at Leo. Then Clarissa, you don't get to hide in the shadows anymore. They both stared at me like I'd just rearranged the rules of the universe. And I had. Because the storm wasn't coming. It was already here. The silence after I dropped that envelope was louder than any scream. Clarissa looked like she wanted to cry, maybe out of guilt, maybe because the game was finally over and she didn't know how to play without her hidden cards. Leo? He stared at the floor like it had betrayed him, too. I don't understand. Clarissa finally whispered. Why go through all this? Why not just leave? I stood up slowly, adjusting my sleeves. Because I'm not the one who left, I said. You did. You just forgot to pack. And I walked out. That was the day the wall came down. Hannah stayed quiet for most of it, giving me space. She watched the wreckage unfold with the same calm she'd always had. Only now, it felt less like observation and more like solidarity. She saw the truth, just like I did, and neither of us needed to say out loud what we both felt. We were the only ones left standing in a house that had already burned down. Back at home, I packed Clarissa's things. All of them. Lined up boxes by the door. Changed the locks. When she came home later that night, she didn't knock. Just stood outside, looking at her own reflection in the glass like she didn't recognize the woman staring back. I didn't want to hurt you, she said. That's the thing, I replied through the door. You just didn't care if you did. Clarissa moved in with her sister for a while. Leo, as far as I could tell, went to ground. No posts, no calls, nothing but silence. Cowards don't usually stick around when the stage lights come on. And in the chaos, Hannah stayed. She stopped by often, mostly under the excuse of checking on Emma. But we both knew it was more than that. We were family now. Only this time, it was real. One afternoon, we were sitting on the porch watching Emma chase bubbles in the yard. Hannah had this quiet sadness in her eyes, like she was mourning something. Maybe it was her friendship with Clarissa. Maybe it was the years of believing in something that had never been true. You ever wonder how long it was going on? She asked, not looking at me. Doesn't matter anymore, I said. What matters is that it stops. She nodded slowly, then said the thing I hadn't let myself say yet. You're going to make them pay, aren't you? I didn't answer. Not right away. Instead, I handed her a folder. She flipped it open. Bank records. Work emails. Some pictures. All tied together with a neat little bow. They betrayed me like amateurs, I said. But I'm handling this like a professional. That week, Clarissa showed up with a lawyer. Not to fight for custody. No, she knew better. No judge alive was going to hand a child over to someone who used a baptism as the opening act for infidelity. But she wanted her share of the house, of the car, of the savings. What she didn't know was that I had already met with Jenna. And Jenna? Jenna had prepared the legal version of a sledgehammer. Clarissa walked into mediation with a purse full of nerves and walked out with a polite agreement that gave her exactly what I let her have, which wasn't much. Leo got hit harder. He lost his job. Turns out, company policy doesn't take too kindly to workplace relationships. especially when your partner's husband is providing the HR department with evidence of every lunchtime rendezvous. Leo thought he was playing chess. Turns out, he didn't even bring a board. And me? I stayed calm, composed. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Because the most satisfying victories are the quiet ones. The ones where they walk away thinking, how did he do all that without even raising his voice? It wasn't long before Leo tried to reach out. He sent a text. Just one. I messed up. Can we talk? I didn't reply. I didn't block him either. I just left it there. Read. Let him sit in the silence he created. But what I did do was send a copy of that text to Hannah. And she posted a single sentence on her social media that hit like a brick. Some people confuse forgiveness with access. I'm not that generous. That post got shared, liked, commented on. And Leo? He vanished again. The man who once called himself godfather to my child was now nothing but a memory with a bad haircut. A shadow and a photo I'd already taken down. A chapter I'd burned, line by line, in my fireplace while sipping whiskey and finally sleeping through the night. It's been 6 months since the truth came out. Emma laughs louder now, sleeps deeper. She doesn't understand what happened, not yet. But somehow, kids always know when the storm has passed. Clarissa still sends updates. She's not with Leo anymore, obviously. That relationship died in the light, like most things that can only survive in secret. As for me, I rebuilt, not out of desperation, but out of peace. I got my home back, my daughter, my dignity. And the best part? I never had to scream, never had to beg. They burned the house down and thought I'd live in the ashes. Instead, I built a fortress out of the rubble. And at the foundation of that fortress? A hug, one moment, one embrace with Hannah on that dark day. We're family too, I told her. Only a real one. And we are. Stronger, smarter, fireproof. Because sometimes, the people who betray you teach you the most valuable lesson of all. Loyalty isn't a promise, it's a pattern. And when someone breaks it, you don't break with them. You outlast them. You win. Silently. Completely. And with your daughter laughing in the sunlight like nothing ever touched her. That's the real revenge. That's the ending. And it's mine.